When we were here in 2024, we were skeptical if we'll be back in 2026. But by the grace of God, we are here again. And that gives me hope. 2 years, it's not a small thing. And when you're building something, it takes time. But because of hope, you continue doing the same thing over and over again until you achieve the success you're looking for.
We want to thank God so much for the wonderful 2 days we've been here.
I'd really love to say I'm very proud of the work that EAVA is doing, but I'd love to know the work that you did to bring in the shades in the room. How was that conversation, the first conversation you did with the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council?
Nikimaanisha kwamba the community, they are being harassed in each and every corner, from the clergy, from the community itself. Sasa hapa tukiwa sisi tumekutana hapa, hilo ni jambo ambalo kwamba mimi husema is a progress.
When we talk about what it's like to be othered, what it's like to be left out, what it is like for religion to say you don't belong, the very thing that makes us human, that nurtures our souls, faith, when it says you do not belong, where do we go?
Faith is a very key issue in our community because we're a conservative society, and that makes it us be considering the higher power, the divine. Most of it is what has been passed on to by our parents, and of course when we see in the society, it's what the institutions or the government encourage, this faith, because it has a way of keeping a community thinking along certain lines. So as we are discovering ourselves and how life works for us individually, we get back to them and see them as people who perhaps have more knowledge or wisdom on how things work in the society. So likewise, we decide to say, what would the pastor say about this? What does the church say about that?
There's a power that faith has that people have not unpacked clearly. One is the power to convene, and two, power to convince. So faith brings people together. I mean, you see people in the millions every Sunday in a church, every Friday in a mosque. So they are convened, then they are convinced to a particular cause. So imagine if you convince all those millions to a wrong cause, they would cause havoc to a nation. But if you convince those people to the right cause, the cause of justice, the cause of belonging, which was the theme of this convening, the cause of love, the cause of dignity, then a lot of things can happen. So faith voices matter because of that very power they have.
Faith has been used, or religion has been used as an instrument to advocate or to say that LGBTIQ communities are based on morality grounds, that is. And the aspect of morality, when you link it to the faith issues and to the cultural issues, there are all these stereotypes and misconceptions that it is an African, it is not what the Bible or the scripture advocates, you know. And this is where now we come in to look at faith and redefine what faith really means in terms of issues of affirmation, acceptance, and inclusion as well. So looking at the interpretation of the scriptures, redefining these interpretations of the scriptures to ensure that we are talking about inclusion rather than condemnation of the LGBTIQ or gender and sexual minority persons.
That's why you have people say no. But if the Bible says a good Samaritan, love your neighbors, you love yourself, then it did not talk about the people that are close to you. It actually talks of people who are different from you. But now faith and the leaders, the spiritual leaders, they've come to interpret it according to what would suit them. according to what the system has been, so that they did not disrupt the order.
I think the current frameworks shape risk and protection in almost equal measures, because we've seen how the law has, in one hand, protected people, a lot of LGBTQ plus persons and other minority groups in the society, but at the same time, the same laws are used to violate these rights. So for example, if I would just speak to the Kenyan context, which I'm extremely familiar with, is that the Constitution, our Chapter 4, has a Bill of Rights and Freedoms that everyone, it talks about every person, the language there is every person has the right to do this, every person has the right to equality and non-discrimination, every person has the right to education, to freedom. Ideally, it talks about every person. But what we've seen is that people are now coming up to enact other laws. For example, there's the proposed Family Protection Bill, which if passed would be similar to Uganda's EAVA, which is extremely harmful. However, it's not yet passed. It's still at the very preliminary stages. But on the other hand, Kenya has the Penal Code, specifically sections 162A, C, and 165, which criminalizes consensual same-sex conduct. And it's the specific tool of law that has been used to violate the rights of queer persons in Kenya, and even refugees and asylum seekers that also reside in Kenya. It's in equal measure. In Kenya, sana, I spoke Swahili, guys, I'm Kenyan. In Kenya, the constitution is quite progressive. It is what we anchor our work as CSOs, work in broader human rights. Our constitution protects us. The international laws that we've signed, the UDHR, ICCPR, all those international laws that we've also signed also protect minorities. But at the same time, I will not go without saying that these same laws, like the Penal Code, are used to cause further risk to the community.
So what has been able to change significantly over the years is expanding safe spaces for the LGBTIQ communities or other gender and sexual minority persons to be able to interact with faith issues. Expanding spaces where LGBTIQ persons can interact with religious leaders and cultural leaders and still feel that they belong in these particular spaces. Initially, that was a challenge because of the perception that was being held by the faith leaders at that time.
You'll have the Pentecostal movement, and they are really so bent on trying to show that a certain group of people, they don't even deserve any hearing. They don't deserve to be considered as the neighbors that the Bible talked of. But of course, some of these things are intertwined, because even the governments or the countries themselves, the nations, they also wield their own power. And anything that is to do with the liberties of those who are vulnerable or marginalized and need to be included, they are being cast aside. Like everything should be black and white. You're either this or that, instead of looking at how complex human beings are and how life is, and therefore trying to be all-embracing.
But over the years, we've seen a change on that, whereby we see faith leaders becoming agents of change in preaching about acceptance and inclusion of the LGBTIQ persons in not only spaces of worship, but even within the institutions of service delivery.
He talked something about the religious side of view on his side, yeah? But according to Islam, I believe nothing should be changed. Because when you look in the Quran and the Hadith, it talks about inclusion. In every chapter, I'm just giving you some chapters and verses, you can go and look in them. When he talked about killing and helping somebody in Surah Ma'idah, that's the chapter 5, verse 32, he said, when you heal or when you treat one soul, you have treated the whole universe.
We have been empowering a religious leader. Like in Mombasa, they have been empowering religious around 350. That's a very big number. They're all empowered, they're all having at least the knowledge of the community.
If we look at East Africa, Kenya is a bit progressive in the way that its protections is quite expressed in protecting every person. So the language is every person, every person. And when it says every person, it doesn't say that a certain person who looks like this or who loves a certain type of person is not protected under that class. The every person remains to protect every person, including minority groups. But then in other countries, for sure, that is not the same. It's not guaranteed. As much as they have that language, they're a bit strict. There's no democracy, there's no freedom to express. But that does not mean that other queer people do not exist there. It's just that it's a little bit difficult. Organizing is a little bit difficult. If you think of Burundi, if you think of Tanzania, it's not like Uganda and Kenya. We organize completely differently. Like, we're out there, we're trying to put our work out there. We're a bit visible, even with the restrictions here and there, but we can't compare it to what's happening in Tanzania. 2 years ago, we did a bit of work in Tanzania, in Zanzibar, in Burundi. And it's a way like even where you meet, it's a secret because you never know when police would come in, and your offense then is just holding a meeting. So imagine being arrested because we're sat here doing this interview, which would warrant arrest in certain countries. So I'd say, and that's why I feel like there's a need for movement building. There's a need to continue sharing learnings across the region. There's a need to ensure that we're not, Kenya and Uganda is not moving. We're here and our siblings are still struggling.
Bringing together people from across different sectors, trades, faith, cultures and historical backgrounds is a very good and creative way of making the change, because we are all the time speaking, shouting across one another. Yeah, we assume so many things about another and we hold them to be true even if they are not true. But when we come together and meet, it is an opportunity for a diverse group to have a discussion, to really talk to one another and hear from one and listen to one another, because that talking, listening to one another creates a good understanding. It sheds off all these biases, sheds off all these stereotypes, and then we begin to see that, well, what I actually thought about the other person is not exactly who they are.
If you're in rooms where you are within your own specialization, you tend to speak your own language, your own jargon. But for me, it was the balanced conversation that was here today. And the second thing is complementing each other. That when I speak from a lived reality, somebody was in the room giving me statistics, giving me data, that these are the numbers. Somebody also telling me something about algorithms. So for me, it's how we complement the work that we do that I was able to discover and appreciate in the meeting.
This is a very unique approach to ensure that we are integrating faith dialogue within all the key sectors that really need to have inclusion of the marginalized communities.
If anyone asked me how it is in that room, it's a room full of wealth, full of hope, for sure. To have progressive faith-based leaders, and not just from like one denomination, from different denominations, come into the room. People in tech, independent journalists, lawyers, human rights defenders, all come into one room, championing for the same cause, looks like hope. Because again, this has been a cause that looks like, oh, I feel like only a certain group of people should champion for human rights. Well, human rights, as they said, human rights, they're for everyone, every single human being, these things affect them. Like even the bills that are passed, someone might think they're only being passed for queer persons, but it affects any other person in the society.
We actually forget that if it were this person who is very close to you, you would say something in a different way. But because you somehow do not want to give thought about the other human being, or you're not even maybe looking at the other human being, then you feel free, you can say anything. But now when we really come together, you find that maturity, civility dictates that you be respectful, that you listen to the other person. And so the opportunity of all coming together gives us an opportunity to be heard, to listen, to speak honestly and candidly about the different ways we look at things.
We are building a movement. We are building a unique kind of movement and coalition and solidarity that is more sustainable and more visible within our society. And in this case, there is a significant feeling when it comes to the aspect of visibility and making sure that we are normalizing the conversations around gender and sexual minority persons.
After all that, we come to a consensus of how we are all human beings and how we all need love. We want to be loved, respected. So coming together is vital because it helps us to speak to one another in an honest way and also to listen and fully understand each other. And then when we are out of that room and out of such a gathering, we are better and more knowledgeable and understanding about the other person, who they are and what they do and how they do it, instead of having illusions or delusions even, or having certain biases on who that kind of person could be. Well, clearly they are just normal human beings, flesh and blood, and they don't mean any harm to anyone, except they are also trying to figure out this life in the way they see it from their perspective.
Most of the time, the faith leaders are being termed as radical or maybe hardliners, whom they cannot sit with other community. So in this one, I could see that at least there is that change, that faith leaders can sit with other, the journalists and whatnot, and which to me is a progress.
A question that often comes up is what does religion say? Because everyone believes in what their Quran, their pastor, their sheikh, or whoever you believe in says when it comes to homosexuality and same-sex relationships. So a lot of people tend to, if you ask a layman today, what do you think of queer persons? They'll tell you it's wrong and ask you where are you getting that from. Very few would quote a constitution or quote the penal code, or in Uganda quote the AHA. They will tell you my pastor said, or my sheikh said, or God said. Yeah. So if we look at faith-based leaders coming into these sectors and preaching love, preaching non-discrimination, preaching acceptance, then it goes, because the power that faith-based leaders also hold is quite huge. Every day people go to church, masses and masses of people. These people who go to church are the neighbors. These people who go to church are the service providers. These people who go to church are the people teaching people in schools. So the moment they're told at the church or at the mosque that they should not preach hate, but preach love and acceptance, then that means that the society at all is going to change their mind.
As the people they are leading, the sheep, as the church calls them, the followers, they are of all different kinds and with all different sort of interests and perspectives and views on how life is. And so when we have them in the room, it is to share the truth or the reality of what there is about their congregation, about their followers. You might have your faith looking at it in this particular perspective, but what we have on the ground, what we have as the reality is they are all different kinds of people. And so you need to know about them, and they are hurting. They need to be safe. So coming together helps them change the mindset. First of all, show them the reality of the other people and who they are, and how they are also human beings, and how they deserve protection. They deserve to be kept safe, even in the community, because whoever they are does not in any way endanger other people's well-beings.
So we are at a point where various biases and inequalities are influenced because of individual or personal religious beliefs and perceptions, or cultural beliefs and perceptions. When we start by targeting those perceptions and transforming people to shift from that mindset or perspective, then that is the first step towards making people to be the agent of changes that we are seeking.
We need to empower the religious leader, because most of them, they are just wholly on the holy books, but they're not thinking outside the box. And yet the holy books also, they don't say that maybe kill people. Killing people is just another crime. To me, I feel that at least by having those religious leaders empowered, they will change their whatever the attitude they're having.
We have had and addressed cases of eviction of the LGBTIQ communities being evicted from their houses, and who has been able to mediate between the LGBTIQ individual and the community living within that particular residential. It is the religious leader, because the communities within those residential listen to the religious leaders on the ground.
The last place we expect to be excluded from is always the church. So the church should be able to receive everyone with open hands, because anyone who thinks of church thinks of God. And when we talk of God, we are looking at someone who is loving, someone who will also not just throw you away.
So there is a commandment God gave us that first of all, we are all called, and there is an obligation, only one obligation, that has 3 equal dimensions. Love God with all your heart or your mind or your strength. Number 2, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do not do to your neighbor, do not say to your neighbor, do not think about your neighbor that which would have been hurtful if it was being thought about you, said about you, or done to you.
Nori makanga obwo bwe bulamu bwe tutambulira.
So it's good to see how faith-based leaders in Uganda are doing amazing work. Even knowing the way the environment is, it's truly impressive. And also my colleagues from Kenya, it was truly impressive. I learned a lot. I liked the panel conversations. It was true. You know what? Chef's kiss.
When religious leaders engage in this work of including others, then we'll have safer communities, especially the vulnerables, marginalized, the minorities. So you can be sure, how do they become safe? It means that the religious leaders actually have used their influence. They've used the pulpits, they've used every chance they've been given to speak, because they are respectable members of society. So when they've used the pulpit, they've used every chance to speak love, to speak inclusion, to speak how everyone deserves that humanity and care. When that is done, then you know that we have people who are marginalized, weak, vulnerable, and need protection. They will be safe.
And in a way also, that creates a regional force, that creates solidarity to push against the impunity that cuts across the East African countries. Because what we have been able to observe is that it is the same anti-rights actors that are moving across East African countries to push the same narrative, right? So instead of working in silo within our respective jurisdictions, then when we come together and amplify our voices together, then we create a unified movement to address such cases of impunity.
And the attacks and violations can reduce, but also that would mean even the church itself, the faith, the Muslim community itself, it becomes more of a world where people are living side by side harmoniously without anyone feeling that the other is evil or needs to be killed because they are like a curse or something like that.
I imagine a situation or a society whereby people are not being violated and no one is trying to harm another person, no one is trying to blackmail another person, no one is trying to evict another person, no parent is trying to organize for corrective homophobia for their child, or there's no conversion practices, because the moment we create that environment, then these cases will go down and we live in a very beautiful society and everyone is happy and there's no harm. So that's what success looks like to me as I sit here.
It matters that the forum brings across people from across East Africa because, yes, we are one region and in many ways we are connected. We have the same belief systems, we have the same traditions largely, and also we have the same violations against the minorities, against people we feel are caste or less of human beings because of them being a little bit different from us. We also have different experiences, and so when we have from all over, then we share some of these notes, and these notes can be very helpful in learning from one another. So these learnings taken together can help another community that hasn't been doing that, so there is knowledge sharing, and that particular sharing is very important in advancing inclusivity and belonging and dignity and safety of all the other community members. So when we meet, we share, we learn, and we know the challenges together and see how to approach, create synergies, or where we have safer or progress somewhere, we can find where some of our colleagues or people can be protected or borrow some of those best practices that have developed and how they were able to achieve them. Meanwhile, you strengthen and encourage where we still have communities lagging behind, because we do have them among East African. We are all not at the same level, but coming together is the beginning of ensuring that we move together.
Having those messages from different countries, having the people from different countries, there's whatever they are doing in different countries, to me it matters, because what we do in Kenya, maybe Mombasa, is not what is being done in Uganda, nor is it done in Nairobi itself. So by bringing these people together, I think it matters a lot. At least the message passes through different entity. The Mombasa one will have his message here, the Nairobi ones, the Rwanda one, the Kenyans one, the Tanzanian ones. So to me it matters a lot to have this session being held, and this forum to be a forum of all to go.
So one of the things that we have acknowledged right now, besides geographical representation, is the power and the impact that comes with multi-sectoral approach to addressing issues. Other than that also, the leaders that we are trying to change, the leaders that we are trying to inspire them to advocate for the rights of the marginalized communities are the same leaders that interact with leaders across the East African region, between cross-border countries. And so due to that feature, it's important that we also come together, get to learn what are the cross-cutting or commonalities on the issues that we face, and join hands and address those issues from a united front.
Faith has been utilized as one thing that has caused injustice, exclusion, and discrimination. So funding faith work would mean that we are funding shifting of norms. We are funding the work that challenges the content that is used by perpetrators of violence, all kind of things. So funding that work would mean that we are funding work to shift norms. We are funding work to create safe spaces. We are funding work to create champions of justice and inclusion in all sectors of life.
one thing that we really need to put more emphasis on is on addressing the norm shifts, and addressing norm shifts from the perspective of understanding that the same norms that we keep holding pass from generation to generation. So it is important that from this point we look at the aspect of technology, the digital inclusion issues, and how we can start now to address norm shifts so that we can as well influence what is getting into the media, so that we can influence what is getting into the technological platforms, to be able to ensure that there is that impact across the region and not just within our own countries.